What's up everyone and welcome back to Reload Reacts episode 72. My name is Trey and today we are going to look through r/ProRevenge, the subreddit for those who get back at the ones who wrong them and are usually quite good at doing it. This first post is by Reddit Saved My Again. My landlord got not exactly what he deserved, but it was sure a rough ride for him. I had a landlord who was pretty absent. I lived in this building, a high-rise, like 20 stories, for 10 plus years. He, despite living next door to me, was absent and cold personally, but cool enough. Rent was good. Our agreement was never bother him about anything unless it's an absolute emergency. Shower head wonky? Go buy a new one. Fridge breaks? Get it fixed or do just buy a new one. Take it out of what you pay in rent. Lose the receipt, I don't care, I know more or less what a fridge costs, just take it out of rent. Finally, his wife decides she wants more rent. Wants to rent the place out as an office, not legal, and wants us out ASAP. I agree to move out a month early and get a month's rent back plus deposit. Complete 180 on their part. The place is ruined, can't give you S until you fix all this stuff. Two main things. My cats did scratch up the leather legs of the dining table, and the pull-up bar made 2 dents in the door frame of the kitchen, which was quite nice hardwood. They come to me with this list of tons of stuff like, oh, you hang a photo frame here, this tile is slightly chipped. This is the busiest work time of the year for me, but I'm trying to be cooperative, sure. I got the table legs re-leathered, spackle the photo frame wall hole, can't do anything about the door frame, take it out of the deposit, patch the tile, like dozens of little everyday wear and tear things. Like you want me to change the window screens? Those are all new screens and in nicer shape than when I moved in. But I did them all, I trusted the guy, gotta get my money. At the end, he should have been giving me about 24k reimbursement, around €2,500. He gave me 5. I still need to use the money to fix all that stuff. If you can't accept the 5, I can't give you anything at all. I was super peed off, but I took the 5. Now, people in this building are gossipy. I don't participate, but I did tell this one older lady about my frustration. She told everyone. The wife went from being the star of the mummies group of the building to nobody wanting to talk to her. People shunned the guy too. I originally told them I was planning on moving to another city, but an opportunity came up and I ended up renting a similar unit in the same building. So they thought they could just screw me over and not have to see me, but now they still did. Often. A year later, the office calls me with some question about how to do something with the floor heating. I go, door frame is not fixed, still has dents. I call the guy like, what the hell man? He tells me to mind my own business. 5 years later, I see the light at my old place is still on at 3 AM. Huh, that's odd. I go to check, the door is open and the place is just trashed. Ruined. Cabinets broken, stuff on the walls, lazy landlord, and the dents on the kitchen door frame are still there. So the guy never fixed anything, just kept my money. By this time, smartphones were popular, and we had a group chat for the whole building, so about 500 people. I took pictures and posted everything. Apparently, he had also nicked these people's deposits, and there was a huge ruckus when they trashed the place. Cops called. All these people chime in with complaints and pictures, people smoking in the hallways, leaving leaky rubbish outside the front door, videos of people using foul language in front of children, dirty footprints. He got fined a lot for 1. Creating a public disturbance, 2. Degrading the quality of the living space, 3. Illegally renting a resident as an office, and to top it off, the building management wouldn't grant him permission to have workers in to fix the place. So it sat there empty for like 6 months. The fines were big too. Take 1.5 months rent from me? Lose a year's rent. Suck it, bro. Damn. They kinda deserved that though, I gotta give OP credit. Let's see what the comments have to say. Renting in China. To get our bond back, I went to the agent's office and refused to leave until they paid. Was there for hours. After a screaming match, I had to walk them to the ATM to get it. Another former tenant was there chasing their bond as well. The agency was trying to claim their whole bond for damages done to the tenant's personal items after the apartment flooded from a broken pipe in the wall. That's crazy. Good for you. There was a viral video I saw recently of a landlord in China unwilling to fix some girl's AC/heater, and the whole thing escalated into basically the tenant telling the landlord to keep the deposit and moving out, but not before absolutely thrashing the place, clogging sinks and turning on water, breaking mirrors, unplugging the fridge and leaving some food out, as well as smearing a bunch of stuff all over the walls, destroying furniture, etc. The absent a-hole landlord didn't know about any of this until the property management called her and told her that the downstairs neighbours complained about the water coming from her apartment. I think in the end, it was basically the same result, with the landlord getting absolutely effed in the A, all because of the greed and perceived power, plus the comments tearing her to shreds were the cherry on top. This next post is by Shalater. Landlord put me through 3 years of hell. My landlord was a terrible human being. Honestly, calling him human is even pushing it. Just a few things he has done to me over the past 3 years. Stole my dryer and other household products that are in a common area, made me pay for a plumbing repair which was deemed normal wear and tear, tried breaking into my house, retaliated against me because I went to my lawyer after he sent me a letter about a parking spot. He tried charging me an extra $150 a month. Mind you, I was never late for rent in 3 years, except for when he made me pay for the plumbing repair. So the next month I was a couple days late. The list goes on. Now this apartment was nowhere near nice. I found out the plumbing was illegal. He left me with a porch for years that has severe safety issues. The ceiling paint was always falling down, gas heater was not up to code, and so on. I finally got my chance to leave after he wanted to raise my rent $500 a month. He would do anything and everything to get more money out of his tenants. So I called the building inspector 4 days before I left. I told him everything. The porch, when he finally replaced it, didn't have a permit and was definitely not up to code. I told him about the plumbing and the heater. I went on and on. The inspector came over the very next day. I saw him take measurements. Each violation is a $500 a day fine until fixed. I honestly don't know what happened, but my god did it feel good to finally get him back. He's at the very least on the town's radar. A week before I moved out, he tried telling me I needed to be out at a specific time. I never responded, and where I live that's not how it works. He tried to threaten me with the police if I wasn't gone. Well, I went to the police myself that morning to warn them. The landlord did come by, threaten me and harass me. I called the police, they informed him I was in the right. Long story short, he had broken into my apartment I had left to go to storage while I was gone. He nailed my door shut. I told the police to get the supervisor because I was over being harassed by this guy. Go figure he left before the supervisor could get there. I'm positive he knew he'd be arrested on site. Got the police report, they charge him with a felony for breaking and entering. Fines plus a charge? Don't be a jerk to good people. I can get with that moral sentiment. This next post is by a deleted user. Got rude guy arrested for suspended license. This story takes place about 20 years ago. In the mid-2000s, my family and I would frequent a small billiards place in a neighbouring town where you could rent a table by the hour or play per game. We'd play a few games, watch whatever sports were on TV, and have casual conversations. There were no problems and no drama until about 3 months of us visiting this place. A guy shows and takes our spot at the billiards table. No big deal. We were all chatting anyway. 20 minutes later, my friend lets him know we want to play next game and the jerk is super dismissive. Needless to say, we didn't get in during the next game, so I politely let him know we wanted to play next. Another lady chimed in, she wanted the game after us. The guy blatantly ignored me and the other woman. Some more time going by and the guy leaves the table. We see our chance to get in. We put the quarters in and the balls are dispensed except the green 6 ball. The guy took it to the bathroom with him. At this point, it was ridiculous and we notified the manager. The manager noted it was 12:30 and they were going to be calling last call and closing, so he didn't want to make a scene by kicking him out. He gets us another ball so we can play. The guy comes out of the bathroom and knows we realized what he did. He smirks and proceeds to the patio to have a cigarette, bringing along his beer and the green billiard ball. The guy comes back in and tossed the ball he was holding onto the table, hitting a few balls on the table and messing up our game. He goes up to the bar just in time for last call. One of the friends I was with suggested we follow him home and each call the highway patrol to report a suspected drunk driver. 3 of 4 of us agree. So when he leaves, we used our trusty Nextel push-to-talk phones and coordinated several calls to the police. We provided details like license plate, vehicle make and model and colour, and mentioned the car nearby hit another vehicle, was swerving between lines and driving erratically. This was under a 15-minute plan. We had no idea where the guy lived, but suspected it was close as he was visiting a neighbourhood place, so our time was limited. The one guy who didn't notify the police tailed the jerk and called us giddy when a police officer pulled between him and the guy and turned in his lights to pull him over. The police blotter that week included an arrested of a guy who was pulled over after multiple calls of erratic driving. He wasn't arrested for DWI, but instead for driving on a suspended license. Yay! Multiple counts. This next post is by Called in the 90s. A lawyer's ProRevenge on a landlord. Landlords are a-holes generally speaking. Everyone knows that. But if you think residential landlords are bad, they're nothing compared to commercial landlords. Landlords of commercial buildings are some of the cruelest, nastiest people I've ever come across. This revenge tale is about a commercial landlord and how I dealt with him. Back in the 90s, sometimes I'd go for lunch at this restaurant in the basement of our building. The place was called The Vault because it had a massive bank vault that had always been there, dating back to the days before the place was turned into a restaurant. The vault was so huge that they could seat a couple of tables in there, and you could eat dinners surrounded by rows of old gleaming safe deposit boxes. One day, I was there for lunch and the owner took me aside. "The landlord's driving me nuts," he said. "The landlord drives everyone nuts," I said. I was a subtenant in the same building, sharing space with an older lawyer, Aaron, and the landlord was always causing us trouble. I'd already had a few run-ins with him, and we hated each other on sight. In most jurisdictions, commercial landlords don't need court orders to get you out if you're late with the rent. Instead, they just change the locks, and you find out about it when you show up and your key doesn't work. Every time our landlord had a dispute with anyone, which was often, he'd always threaten to change the locks. "He keeps demanding all this stuff for extra rent," the vault's owner said, "and it's really weird because a lot of it's really old." The restaurant owner showed me a letter the landlord had served him earlier that day. I looked over the demand and read a list of expenses for snow removal and parking lot repair and common area flooring and all kinds of going back years. I read it all the way to the end and there it was, the usual clause saying he was going to change the locks if the tenant didn't pay this and do that. "You do something to make the landlord hate you?" I asked. "Because this is a bit over the top, even for our a-hole landlord. He knows I'm moving the restaurant. I think he's trying to grab as much money as possible before I go. Plus, he's giving me grief over the vault. He won't let you take it with you? Are you kidding? It weighs almost 100 tons and I don't need it. But the lease says I have to remove it. And that I also have to restore the building to what it was before there was a vault. That would cost a fortune. The a-hole landlord says if I leave the vault behind when I move, he'll sue." "Send your lease up to my office and let me look it over," I said. I finished my lunch and when I got back to my office, the lease was waiting for me. It was just as bad as the restaurant owner said. The lease was a renewal of an assignment of a renewal. The original documents dating back to shortly after World War II, when a bank first leased the place and the vault was installed. Somehow, the landlord had suckered the restaurant into taking over a lease that left him liable to remove a bank vault at the end of the term. No big deal, I thought. The restaurant can default, and all the landlord can do is sue a shell company. But when I got to the last page of the lease, there was a guarantee clause. The restaurant owner had personally guaranteed the lease, and he was on the hook for removing a vault weighing 100 tons, and then fixing up the place. It would cost a fortune. The case was hopeless, of course. That was obvious right away. But then I thought about the a-hole landlord with his demands and his threats and his rent hikes, and I asked my brain to do me a solid, which it promptly did. I picked up the phone and called the restaurant owner. "I'm effed, right?" he said. "You're calling me to say there's no way out. That's what my commercial lawyer already said, but I just thought I'd ask." "I can save you, but it's gonna cost." "How much?" $5,000 in legals, and another G note for the agent. "Agent? What kind of agent?" "Real estate. Send up a check certified and leave the rest to me." The check hit my desk in less than an hour. I went to Aaron's office. "I need a real estate agent," I said. "You buying a house?" "Nope." "Selling a house?" "Nope." By this point, I'd been sharing space with Aaron for almost 5 years and he knew me pretty well. "You pulling one of those stunts again?" he asked. "Yep, but nothing that will get you into trouble." Aaron reached out for his old school Rolodex and started flipping through it. "I know a guy," he said. Aaron knew all kinds of guys, and that's one of the reasons he eventually got disbarred. But he knew a guy, and he gave me the agent's name and number, and the next day I paid the agent a visit. I told him what I needed and we agreed to terms. I gave him some papers and the cash for his fee. A few days later, I was again at the vault for lunch. The owner saw me walk in and greeted me himself. "The landlord's here," he said. "Why?" "For lunch, and to be an a-hole. Let's sit in the vault room so I don't have to look at his face." He took me to the vault room, and with the door almost completely closed, we had a consultation while we ate pasta and drank red wine. We're making demand on the landlord," I said between bites of a perfect carbonara. "Demand? What are we demanding?" I pulled a document out of my briefcase and passed it to him while I sipped my wine. "We're demanding that the a-hole landlord release all of the restaurant equipment, all the fixtures, the ovens, the freezers, the ventilation, everything you need to run a restaurant." "The lease exempts all that stuff," the restaurant guy told me. "He can't stop me from taking what I want. The only thing that matters is the vault, and of course I don't want that." I shook my head. "You need the vault," I said, "and we're demanding that he release the bank vault as well. We're insisting that he let you take it out within 7 business days." "You think you can beat the landlord with reverse psychology? You think if you treat him like a 2-year-old, you can manipulate him into doing what you want?" "We'll find out soon enough. He's had the demand for a couple of days now." The restaurant owner dropped his wine glass and shattered it on the marble floor. "You already gave it to him?" the restaurant owner said. He got up, swung open the vault door, and called for the waiter to clean up the mess. "Let's see what the landlord has to say," I told him, and we walked over to the landlord's table. The landlord was a big, beefy man with a big appetite. He sat alone, eating a rack of lamb wolfishly with his hands. "My client needs an answer today," I said. The landlord looked up at me as he chewed noisily. "I'm the vault's lawyer," I said. "I gave you a demand the other day. My client needs an answer right now. He needs the vault for a new place and he's got to make arrangements." "Your client can forget about the bank vault," he said, wiping his massive greasy hands on an already soiled napkin. "But you can't do that," I said. My shock was feigned, but the restaurant owner's jaw dropped for real. The landlord laughed at us. "I'm the landlord. I can do whatever I want." "I'm gonna need that in writing because my client might sue," I said. "Sue all you like," the landlord told me. "Sue till you're blue in the face." He told me that I'd have a formal response by day's end, and then he told me to go away and let him finish his lunch. When the letter arrived from the landlord, claiming ownership over the bank vault, I brought it downstairs and showed it to my client. "How the hell did you do that?" "Trade secret," I said. The following month, the restaurant moved out and the place was empty, and that was too bad, because I had always liked eating at the vault. Now the restaurant was in a new location 20 minutes away. They called the new place the Vault, and they preserved the vibe of the old place. It was very similar, except they didn't have the bank vault. The bank vault, all 100 tons of it, was where it had always been, in the basement of the building where I rented space. I showed up for work a little after that, and Aaron collared me. "The landlord's looking for you," he said. "Oh yeah, what about?" "He's really angry. He said his deal fell through." "Deal?" "He was supposed to rent the place downstairs to a new tenant. A bank or credit union or something like that. They were supposed to come in to sign a lease, but they didn't show up. What's that got to do with me? I said to Aaron. And I said the same thing again to the landlord when he managed to track me down a couple days later. I knew you were behind this, he said, his jowls quivering. I knew it was you. The offer from the agent, it was all BS. Just a trick to make me keep the vault, so that your client could sneak out of the place and leave that effing bank vault behind. I'm gonna sue. If you're thinking of counsel, I think I'm going to have to declare a conflict. I'm gonna sue the restaurant and that agent, and I'm gonna sue you. He stormed off. But the landlord didn't sue. Of course he didn't. He didn't have a contract to sue on. Only a vague letter of intent that I had drafted, enough to hook a greedy landlord who was used to having his way. The offer he'd received was non-binding, incapable of acceptance without the signing of a formal lease, which of course, never got signed. When I left Aaron's place a year later, the downstairs was still unoccupied with a sad for rent sign sitting in the window, starting to look faded. Well, I actually really enjoyed that one. I hope you guys enjoyed that one too. All the different characters, that was fun. This next post is by Examination Fun 619. Steal furniture, almost lose your job. So my dad owns a house that he's been renting for some time now. The tenants that lived there were for the most part decent people who my dad thought were trustworthy. That all changed about 2 months into the tenancy when the tenant refused to pay the month's rent. My dad showed some leniency and gave them another month to pay up what was owed. They didn't pay a thing. By this point, my dad, frustrated by the whole situation and being 2 months out of rent money, offered them a deal. Leave the house ASAP and then only pay half the money owed. They countered with a different agreement. They would leave the house in a clean state with all of their furniture left behind as compensation. My dad, just wanting to be done with them, agreed. Due to when my dad gets to the house, finding the place in a mess with none of the furniture left behind, including the furniture that belonged to my dad in the first place. The 2 sofas that my dad owned were left behind, but they were trashed and left in the shed. When my dad confronted them asking for them to pay up the full amount that the furniture was worth, he was met with a promise of payment after 2 weeks, which he didn't believe, and when he requested they pay earlier, he was met with, "Good luck getting your money," followed by laughing emojis. This made my dad angry, and he decided he wasn't going to let this slide. My dad knew that the tenant was a Christian pastor of a church, and his son also had some job relating to the church. My dad contacted the church and explained everything from how they hadn't paid him rent money to stealing the furniture and trashing the place. The church was somewhat interested in this behaviour. The next day, my dad gets an angry phone call from the tenant's son cursing at him and asking him what he thought he was doing, contacting the church saying he was being unfair. My dad hung up on him, only for him to attempt to ring 10 times after he hung up. From what we could piece together, the church had told the pastor that if he didn't settle things with my dad, him and his son would lose their jobs. My dad received the full amount for the furniture that same day and agreed to back off. My dad later said, "It was never about the money, but the way this guy treated him and his values." My dad, being a Christian himself, was disappointed. Yeah, I could see that. I wouldn't want to associate with someone that acts that way. This next post is by PJ Murphy. Not going to pay overtime? Think again. I was discussing this sub with a good friend and he said, "Boy, have I got a story that'll fit." It wasn't his story, but his brother's. And I sat with him and got the details. Buckle up, it's a good one. And a long one. Let's call him Bob. Bob has been fiddling with computers since he was a kid, and knows them pretty well. As with most IT people, he's moved from job to job. The employer he worked for was a service/distribution company, and there were 2 IT employees. The company was located in Ontario, Canada. About 3 years ago, Bob's employer decided to modernize their software. They had separate programs for dispatching, for inventory, for payroll, and finances, and it was complicated moving information from one program to the other. They decided to get an ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning program, and Bob recommended one that he knew inside out from a previous employer. For those of you who don't know, an ERP program handles everything. Purchase orders, sales, inventory, personnel, vendors, customers, all of it. You can run a report and find out which customer has bought the most part ABC in the last year. which salesman has improved his numbers the most, which vendor has the fastest delivery time, which shipper packed the most orders. Everyone in the company used the ERP program, but it was very complicated, and they used the aspects of it that related to their position. For example, the receiver would accept a shipment, verify the quantity, confirm it was received, and the inventory stats would be available to the salespeople if they wanted to look up how many were on hand. The receiver didn't care what the price was, or who the vendor was, he just did his job. Bob was run-ragged during the implementation process, but he managed to train most of the employees on their aspects, and after a few months, everything was running fairly smoothly. Bob still got tickets for tweaks in the operation of the software and occasional hardware IT issues. Then the company decided to expand their footprint and was marketing into different time zones. That messed things up. Atlantic Canada is 90 minutes early. So if someone sent an email or an order at 8 AM their time, it would arrive at 6:30 AM Ontario time. Pacific Canada is 3 hours late. So an email sent at 3 PM Vancouver time would arrive at 6 PM. This stretched out the day, so many staff came in early and worked late. Bob would arrive at 8 AM and there would be people that demanded his immediate assistance and were annoyed that he didn't respond instantly, even though their request was submitted before his start time. Same with late in the day, his phone would ring at dinner time with people that wanted help right now. They decided to stagger his and his IT colleagues' shift times. Bob would start at 6 and work until 2:30, and his colleague would start at 10:30 and work until 7. Bob's colleague had kids and refused the shift change. The employer insisted. The colleague quit. That meant that Bob was the only IT person in the department. The employer said they would look into hire a new IT guy, but they had trouble finding one that knew the ERP system, and they were offering well under a market value salary. Bob asked for a raise and was denied. Then he wanted overtime, and the employer told him that as an IT specialist, he was exempt from overtime laws in Ontario. Bob looked it up and the employer was correct. This went on for some time and he knew lots of IT people socially. They told him what the company was offering and Bob knew that they wouldn't find another tech. Things went downhill from there. Bob would get chewed out if he missed a call or an email, no matter what time it came in. He had to train new hires in the ERP system, as well as take care of the hardware. He asked repeatedly for better compensation and was denied, so he planned to get a new job. Now, here's the revenge. Bob had access to the entirety of the ERP program. When a user signed in, the time was logged, and even if they didn't sign out after 15 minutes it would log them out anyway. Everyone in the company was on salary, and many of them came in early and worked late. Ontario labour law states that even salaried workers are entitled to overtime after 44 hours a week, unless they were managers or supervisors. So Bob jumped into the program and ran a report for each employee that wasn't a manager, all the way back to when the ERP program was started. Then he reached out to an employment lawyer and got the okay to refer employees to him. Bob lined up another job, and after he left, every employee in the company got an email with an Excel sheet showing the hours they had put in past 44 hours a week. The subject line said "You're legally entitled to overtime pay" in the body of the email was the lawyer's name. The S hit the fan. Almost every employee authorized the lawyer to negotiate with the company on their behalf, and the company had to pay a ton of money. All the company had to do was pay Bob for the extra work he put in. Instead, they had to pay almost everyone. I'm reading from the comments here that being exempt from overtime pay doesn't mean it can't be paid, which is interesting. It's still a crazy law for Canada to have though. And anyway, that's gonna be it guys. I hope you enjoyed the stories in r/ProRevenge. Let me know what you'd like to listen to next in the comment section below, and also hit that subscribe button because I post new Reddit content every single day. There are 2 videos on the screen right now, one of which is for the most recent video, and another is for a video the YouTube algorithm thinks you want to watch next. My name is Trey, this was Reload Reacts, and I will see you in the next video.